Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, BestInSlot, and welcome to our brand new segment, Jurassic News, a new weekly news segment where we dive into the biggest stories of the week, both for the Jurassic franchise and for paleontology and dinosaurs in general. Unfortunately, because of this new news segment, we have had to cut the weather segment and we've had to let Jimmy go.
What do you mean I'm fired?
Yeah, can we get security in here to get rid of Jimmy? Thanks. Sorry, Jimmy. Anyways, that was a bit. Let's get started with our first news story of the day. Worth mentioning, this should typically be on a Saturday or a Sunday if this is a weekly series going forward, but it's been a hectic couple of days. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about today is Generation Jurassic. It pointed the right way. 4 takes that talk. The first thing we're going to talk about is Generation Jurassic. This is an event planned for the 28th of April of this year, taking place in Universal Studios Hollywood, and it's a coming together of Jurassic Park fans, Jurassic Park media people, etc, in one location at Universal Studios. And there's going to be Q&As and stuff like that with people involved in the industry, especially the toy lines, people like Mattel and Funko. There was, however, a little bit of controversy when this was first announced. We didn't really know what it was, we just knew it was called Generation Jurassic, a celebration, a thing for the fans. And unfortunately, not only is it taking place on a Thursday, but it was announced a mere month before the actual release date. You know, it's 28th of April and we're now 28th of March, and it was announced earlier on this week. So there was quite an outcry initially from people who were worried they weren't going to be able to make it there on time. You know, they couldn't take time off work or make trip plans just a month ahead of time, and also the fact it takes place on a Thursday. As it happens, the event is, whilst it might be very cool, it's not that big a deal. You know, we don't know too much about it, but it seems to be more about the toy line than anything else. But it has kind of brought up a lot of feelings about Universal's general marketing strategy for Jurassic World Dominion, where once again I think the fans in particular don't feel particularly involved in that process. We'll be getting back to this again in just a moment as well. Some brief brighter news before that though. We got our very first in-hand shots of the Extreme Damage Velociraptor, a new toy coming out with the general Jurassic World Dominion line. Now, a new toy in it of itself is not maybe the most exciting thing, but the very cool thing about this toy is it does have a very strong resemblance to the primeval raptor, and I'll show you those images somewhere during this comparison, but you can see what I mean. They're very similar in style. People are quite excited about that because everyone loves primeval at the end of the day. Following on with that, as I mentioned earlier, there have been changes to the marketing for Jurassic World Dominion. Everyone remembers the Dinosaur Protection Group, an established part of Jurassic World canon at this point. Of course, it was featured in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom fairly heavily, but there were of course those websites, those viral marketing websites that were designed as well. They were written by fans and they established a lot of the canon lore. Cracked my finger really weirdly there. Professional news host. Established a lot of the canon lore for the franchise going forward. Things like the desolation of Isla Sorna. Now, it was always a controversial series of articles. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Myself was never the biggest fan in the world, but it was cool to have fans involved, and it was cool to have an expanded lore outside of the films, because it's not something Jurassic really does very well in general. They've started to move in that direction with the TV shows and the books, like the Claire novel, but it's something that needed a little bit more of a push. Well, earlier on this week, and it's yesterday, the Dinosaur Protection Group website was actually taken down. It now directs instead to the official Jurassic World website. I don't think that necessarily means that canon has been revoked and that it no longer exists at the end of the day, because a lot of things have been based on that canon, but it will be interesting to see why it's been taken down. It was always a little controversial. Will more viral marketing websites be brought up in its place? Are they kind of rebooting what is set in the canon? I don't know. I find the discussions of canon quite tiring personally. People get very bogged down in it. In the end, it probably doesn't really matter that much. The franchise has always played fairly fast and loose with the definition anyway, if we're totally honest. Now, earlier on, we talked about Generation Jurassic, that meeting that's happening in Universal Studios Hollywood. One of the teams going to Generation Jurassic is Prospero Hall, and they've actually brought out a brand new board game. Now, this is currently running on Kickstarter. I'm going to link that for you folks down below. You can go check it out, and it's Jurassic World: The Legacy of Isla Nublar. Now, if you don't know what a legacy board game is, they're actually pretty cool. Instead of every gameplay being roughly the same, in a legacy board game, you choose your character and you take them through a series of events. Pandemic Legacy is really where it all started. So in Jurassic World: The Legacy of Isla Nublar, which it's worth mentioning has already over tripled its goal on Kickstarter, so it's definitely getting funded, and there's still 14 days left to go if you want to back it for yourselves. The idea is you'll take your character and you'll take them through a series of events, a series of gameplay scenarios, etc. from each of the films in order. You should be able to go from the start right to the end. It's actually a very, very cool, very exciting idea, and it's one of the few Kickstarters I've backed recently as well. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And of course, Prospero Hall, I believe, are turning up to Generation Jurassic, so maybe we'll get some more insider information from that event when the details come out a little bit later on. Now, whilst that's it for our Jurassic news, we have a brand new segment today. Don't know if I can say that because this is the first time we've done this, but a brand new segment called Dinosaurs Exist Outside of Jurassic Park. And let's get started with our first piece of brand new news. And it's a really exciting one, a brand new 3D CGI docu-series, think Walking with Dinosaurs, things like that, called Prehistoric Planet, is coming to Apple TV on May the 27th. The series is going to use CGI to tell the story of the last days of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. So, 5 episodes, 27th of May, Apple TV+, produced by Jon Favreau, Prehistoric Planet. Very, very exciting news. Cannot wait to get my hands on that. Now, we actually had 2 big paleontological stories this week vying for attention. The first concerned Stan the Tyrannosaurus Rex, that famed skeleton of a T-Rex that kind of disappeared from public view a few years ago. It turns out Stan was bought by someone in Abu Dhabi, and they're setting up a brand new natural history museum in Abu Dhabi, the capital of UAE, the United Arab Emirates. This was tracked down by Michael Greshko, and it's a fascinating read on Twitter about how he followed Stan across the globe and used all these mechanisms to follow him along. So I really recommend you give that a read, and I'll link that down below. But basically, Stan and some other very, very high value fossils are being moved to Abu Dhabi to set up this brand new state-of-the-art, world-defining natural history museum. It's got some really interesting implications for the future of paleontology, both worldwide and in the region. I'll leave you to discuss that. I'm an unbiased news source, clearly. But yeah, fascinating stuff either way. And if you want to see Stan, at least he will be publicly available for view, which is, you know, a good step in the right direction. There was a lot of fears he may be in the hands of a private collector, which would have been much worse no matter what the situation. In a fun reference to Jurassic Park 3 though, the other big paleontological news of the week concerns Spinosaurus, a much hyped Spinosaurus paper. It was hard to avoid the hype on Twitter for the few days beforehand. Everyone was talking about the changes to Spinosaurus and how it being a big year for Spinosaurus. The paper was published in Nature by M. Fabry et al. And it was called Subaqueous Foraging Among Carnivorous Dinosaurs. And what it essentially was a bone density analysis comparing bone density of various dinosaurs against modern animals like hippos, etc., etc. I am not a paleontologist, I'm not going to pretend to be a paleontologist, but to sum up, the idea was that by comparing the bone density of, say, Spinosaurus to a hippopotamus or other subaqueous foraging creatures, we could get an idea about how much time Spinosaurus would spend underwater and therefore hunt underwater. As it turns out, in my humble opinion, the paper wasn't really about Spinosaurus per se. That's what got all the hype. But actually, it turns out, okay, Spinosaurus was a subaqueous hunter, but I think we expected that largely. The exciting news for me personally was more that we discovered that Baryonyx was also likely to be a subaqueous forager in the same vein as Spinosaurus. Baryonyx would have been swooping down to the bottom of the water, swimming down through the rivers and hunting, just like the Spinosaurus would have been based on its bone density. The other interesting aspect of that paper, and it is a very wide, full breadth paper that's worth checking out, is that Suchomimus, which of course is intensely related to the Spinosaurus and the Baryonyx, would not have been a subaqueous forager. It did not have the bone density to support such movements. As I say, there are people much more intelligent than myself dissecting that paper online and discussing it, but that would sum up my general take on the whole thing. And that's it for Jurassic news. I hope you've enjoyed your stay with us. Jimmy is currently trying to set the building on fire. It's a whole thing. Yeah, this was a little bit weird. Hopefully for the next video, it'll be on a weekend, probably less news as well, because I'm summing up less in total. Eventually, I'll have the green screen going. I also want to say, I know other people have dabbled with this idea in the past. Hopefully, I'm going to bring my own spin on it, and we can make it consistent as well. But we'll have to see how things go. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you lovely folks next time. Throw me a like if you enjoyed the video. Cheers. Thank you from everyone here at Jurassic News. Actually, we should be a general news organization. Sloth News. Thank you from everyone here at Sloth News, and me, your host of the Jurassic segment, Connor Dalgarno. Thanks for joining me. Cheers, much love as always. Bye-bye.
Houston, if you're ready, we'll maneuver. Reaching out.